that a great song? So uplifting, always kind of gets you going, doesn't it? And I particularly like it because it was around at the time of the Sydney Olympics. Hard to believe that's nearly 17 years ago. Now, looking out here, I can see some of you would have been watching the games from your playpens. But I'm sure there are others of you. Hands up if you were a volunteer or you had some sort of role at the Olympics. Oh, look, there they all are. Congratulations, like me. You were a member of the Pajama Army. You remember that? And the Harry High Pants? Did you have those? I rocked a pair of Harry High Pants. That was a great uniform. Isn't it funny when you see people now mowing the lawns in their Olympic shirt? They just can't let go. But I was very fortunate during the Olympics. I got a great gig. I was actually an announcer at the Olympic hockey stadium, which is very cool. They paid me to do it. I tell you what, I would have paid them. It was so awesome. And as an announcer, that's me, third from the left with the sunglasses. Sometimes people ask, which one are you? Well, I'm not the man. And I'm not some of the older ladies. It was 17 years ago, be kind, folks. Now, some of the jobs we had as announcers, we had to do the general kind of introductory announcements at the ground. We had to make the calls during the game if a goal was scored or a penalty corner. I knew nothing about hockey when I started. I knew a lot by the end. But probably one of the most important things we had to do was introduce the athletes as they ran out onto the pitch. Now, hands up who among you has a name that's hard to pronounce? Oh, what's yours? Okay, that's a good one. Anybody else? Somebody with a name that's hard to pronounce? A few more hands there. Shout them out. Anybody over there? Oh, I'm shy. There's a Makio over there. That's hard to pronounce. Can you imagine if you had a whole page full of names that were hard to pronounce as I did? Because in hockey, the hardest names of all belong to the Polish men's team. Any Polish people here? Oh, congratulations. Now, you'd know, Polish people love the letter C, and they love the letter S and Z and K, and they particularly enjoy putting them all together. So in hockey, the announcers had a better workout than the athletes. They brought me up from Wollongong because they needed more vowels. Now, we had language coaches. Oh, yeah, it's still morning, folks. We had language coaches, and I remember the Polish language coach was this funny little guy with dark curly hair and John Lennon glasses, and he got me trained up with these names, and this is one of my original cheat sheets from the games. Oh, and the other thing, this will surprise you, the Olympics is actually all about television and advertising, and so we had to announce the players in a particular time frame so that the game could start at what was called zero time. So this was the precise moment when all the television networks around the world would start the coverage of the live game. So no pressure. So let me take you back. Come back with me with this memory. So it's the year 2000 at the Olympic hockey stadium, and it's my first game of hockey. So there are a couple of us as announcers, but the draw came out. I was very excited because Australia was playing in my first game. And guess who else was playing? Poland! Australia versus Poland. So here I am sitting in the announcer's booth, the glass booth, looking out over the Olympic hockey stadium. 20,000 people in the stands. Millions and millions watching on television, including lots of Polish people. And I knew that any second now I had the job of pronouncing all of those names in that set time. And then the guy next to me, the producer, says, 10 seconds to start. And my heart suddenly started, ooh, there you go, started beating faster. And then he starts counting, 10, 9, 8. And you know when you get that sweaty feeling in your palms? It was happening. 7, 6, and my life started flashing before my eyes. 5, 4, and I'm hanging onto the desk. This is the only thing that's separating me and passing out as the microphone's in front of me. 3, 2, 1. You ever felt like that? Had a moment like that? Maybe you're in a meeting and somebody asks you a question and you haven't been listening. Or you have to have a difficult conversation maybe with somebody who you work with, who reports to you, or a teammate, or maybe your manager. Or maybe you have to have one of those conversations with your partner. And you know, everything just dries up and you just got nothing. You just got nothing. And a lot of the time this happens because You know, in our stressed and busy world, we are so flat out racing around, aren't we? We go from meeting to meeting to meeting. Our electronic devices are going nuts and we can't keep up. And so we race in and then we're put on the spot and we've got nothing there. And it strikes me that we actually operate on two levels here. We've got our kind of surface scatty self, if I can call it that. And that's our self that is the rushed, time-poor person that doesn't have time to think. You know, the scatty one that, you know, does a whole gym class with their clothes on inside out, like I did a few weeks ago. True story. I got home from the gym, had done a class, caught sight of myself in the mirror, and here's the tag flapping in the breeze. Not good, my scatty self. But we've also got our competent self, our competent, capable self. And this is the you that knows what to do, that is good at what you do. Now, you're all in your jobs because you've got a level of skill, education, expertise, experience to do what you do, and you know how to do it. But how often in the day when you're rushing do you forget to draw down on your competent self and you let your scatty self take the reins? And that's why we have those moments. And how much extra stress does that put on us? Because we allow our scatty self to run the show. Now, I thought it would be really great with this very profound point if I had a symbol I could bring to you today, and I thought maybe something from the animal kingdom. So I Googled the most strong and capable animals in the animal kingdom. And I got a few different lists, and one of those was the tiger. So I thought, well, maybe I can say, release your inner tiger, but a bit aggressive, not quite what I was going for. And then there was the gorilla, but I thought, you know, release your inner gorilla didn't really cut it for this audience. But then I found it. I found the perfect representative of the animal kingdom that really epitomises the idea of your capable self. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the dung beetle. The dung beetle, known by the Egyptians as the scarab, worshipped by them. But if you've heard of it, you might know it more as an insect that lives in a pile of dung and actually rolls the dung in balls and takes it away and nests with it. Now you might be thinking, well, that's a bit insulting. I've come here to be inspired, uplifted, and she's comparing me to a bug that lives in a pile of poo. Well, yeah, I am, but work with me. It gets better, because the dung beetle's strength to weight ratio is actually the strongest creature on Earth. It can roll a ball of dung 50 times its body weight. And in fact, one species of the dung beetle has been known to drag a ball of dung more than 1,000 times its body weight, which is the equivalent of you dragging 6 double-decker buses full of passengers. Getting better, isn't it? Not such a bad analogy after all. Now, there are other things about the dung beetle that are worth considering. The dung beetle isn't fazed by being a small part of a larger machine. It just gets on with the job because it's practiced and prepared. It knows what to do. Now, again, how often are we racing around without preparation? And I reckon a large proportion of stress that we generate for ourselves is because we go into things unprepared. We don't take the time to do even the most basic preparation. And you know what? A pinch of preparation can save you. Now, you might be thinking, well, you know, she told me that we're all so busy and racing around. Now she's saying, I've got to prepare. How am I going to find the extra time? But what I'm saying is, 30 seconds preparation. 30 seconds, 45 seconds preparation before you go into an important meeting, before you go into one of those important conversations, is going to make a huge difference. 30 seconds to switch your mindset, to consider, where's my head at right now? Am I present? And we've heard that phrase already this morning. Am I here? Am I ready? Or am I still thinking about the thing that I've come from, or the last conversation I had? And have I taken time to think about what I'm going to say? And again, you can do this in seconds, just by following the simple rule of 3. You might have heard this. The human brain does something almost magical with 3 pieces of information. Easy for us to digest, easy for us to remember. So think about the key point you're going to make in that meeting and break it down into 3 sub-points. Easy to remember. All of a sudden, you're in the right headspace and you know what you're going to say. That is totally going to infuse your body language. You're going to walk in looking more confident. That's going to have an impact on the others in the room, and it's only going to take you a few seconds. So be like the dung beetle and be a bit more prepared. The other thing with the dung beetle is it's not dragged down by other people's shit. Conflicting priorities. And it's so easy for us to get distracted because we're pushed and pulled in all different directions, aren't we? But like the dung beetle, we need to stay focused. And that starts with having a clear intent. So again, when you're going into a conversation or a meeting or a presentation, have an intention for what the outcome is going to be. Now, we hear about visualization and vision boards, and people talk about visualizing for their life, and that's nice. But I'm talking here about very specific, small-scale visualizing when you're going into a conversation. What's the outcome going to be that you want? You're not necessarily going to get it every time, but just having that picture, again, is going to give you inspiration. It's going to make you walk taller. It's going to change your body language, your tone of voice, your words, and the other people in that conversation will bounce off that. So knowing your outcome before you go in can make a difference. The dung beetle also has this knack of always going in a straight line, regardless of the obstacles that are in its way. Now, do you reckon one dung beetle says to another, "This is going to be a really bad day. I came this way yesterday and it was a shocker"? No, it just keeps going. But we as human beings don't operate like that most of the time, do we? Because a lot of us have got this voice in our head saying, "You can't do that. You tried that last week and it didn't work. You're going to make a fool of yourself." Anybody else got a voice that says stuff like that? Yeah, that's right. So often we're going into a situation, again, whether it's a meeting, a conversation, but we're bringing the baggage from our past, because most of our thoughts come from our past, don't they? And we have thousands and thousands of thoughts in a day. I asked a group once how many thoughts they thought we had in a day, and somebody said 5. I'd like to be that person. We have thousands and thousands. And as much as 90% of those thoughts are grounded in the past, and most of them are negative that we remember. So it's no wonder you feel anxious about making a phone call to somebody because you're already thinking about last time you called them and they were a bit narky because they were having a bad day. Or if you avoid having a conversation with somebody because you're already remembering another conversation with somebody else 10 years ago that's got nothing to do with this one. So part of that is looking that in the eye and saying, "That was then, this is now. This is a different day. I've got an intention. I'm prepared. I know what I want from this situation." That's going to make a difference. It's going to help to reduce your stress levels. So we could do worse. You could all do worse than releasing your inner dung beetle. There's lots of good things to take away. It's prepared and practiced. It sets a clear intention. And it's not fazed by thoughts of the past. It just keeps going. So the producer had counted me in. And here I was in silence for what seemed like half an hour. But in reality, it was probably half a second. And then something really amazing happened. I took a breath. And the Olympic fanfare started to play. And all of a sudden I'm saying, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Sydney 2000 Olympic Games. The Games of the 27th Olympiad." And next thing, all the players are running out onto the pitch. The Aussies are coming out and the crowd's going wild and the Poles are coming out and again Yushkovsky and all his friends are coming out and the crowd's cheering and the umpires come out and the game starts. 0 time. And I look out beyond the glass and I see this little guy with dark curly hair and John Lennon glasses looking back at me and he goes. And I knew I had done okay. You see, something kicked in that day. I took a breath. And my capable self showed up just when I needed it. And you've got a capable self too. So it's just a matter of trusting it and letting it come through. A bit later in the games, I actually got to meet the Polish players. And girls, I have to say, meeting them up close was a lot more pleasant than saying their names. So I wonder what your symbol of success is when you know that you've done something really well, when you've drawn down on your capable self and you've really nailed it. Maybe it is a symbol. Maybe you'll take something away from today. Maybe it's like a gold medal symbol with a dung beetle on. I can't say. But I want to encourage you today to push through those moments when your scatty self takes over. Recognise that and stop, breathe and say, "You know, I'm going to draw down on my capable self. I'm going to make like a dung beetle because actually I have the skills, I have the capability, I have the experience, and I'm going to nail this situation. I wish you every success on your journey, and thank you for listening today.